Hey guys, we're here with Tom, and he's going to be sharing with us his story and how the cross impacted his life. I just want to ask you, Tom, what was your life prior to experiencing the cross?
Prior to it, at best, I probably guess you could call me a cultural Christian. When it came time for me to be baptized in that faith, which was Presbyterian at the time, I only did it for my parents, and that led to a really bad decision in that, because even though I understood who Jesus was and the seriousness of his claims and who God was, I didn't really believe it. And so when my parents divorced, it caused a lot of anger towards God. Though it wasn't right anger, it wasn't pointed in the right direction. And that led me down a really long journey spiritually between different religions and different just worldviews that eventually led me into a very just dark and hopeless view of the world.
So at what point from where you were, what was the point that the cross intercepted with your life?
When I came to Virginia, I was in a really rock bottom place in Texas where I was living at the time. I was working a seasonal job, and so eventually I was at this really breakdown moment. My friend reached out to me and said, hey, apply to this company. I did, got the job, came here to Virginia, and I ended up having a boss who, he just was like, hey, come to church. And I kept saying no, and eventually I gave in after kind of seeing how him and his wife interacted. And then from there I began to meet other people and began to realize that the Christians I was meeting here were not the same Christians that I was used to. What I saw here were people who, yeah, they were still flawed outside of church, but they came to church with their flaws, and they came and understood that there was a completeness in them. And this began getting me to think and wonder about exactly what that was, and I began to get discipleship from these guys. And a lot of them today I still talk to and still get that discipleship from. I think the big question that came to me was, honestly, during all that time, was what kind of man do you want your nieces to have as a model? Or what kind of man do you want to be for your nieces? And I began to realize, like, the kind of guy that I had been was not the guy I would want around my nieces, not the kind of guy I'd want to be dating my nieces. And I realized that in that moment, like, I'm broken, I'm flawed, and there was no way. And it was at that moment, like, really the Bible began to kind of seep in and really show, like, the truth and the fact that we're flawed and broken, and there's never a way to get perfect, except for accepting Jesus and his sacrifice.
So within your brokenness, you encountered the cross, which signified redemption. What difference does that make in your life now? What do you do now that's different, and how has the cross impacted those decisions?
I look at people not as objects anymore. I look at them as, like, they should be looked at, which is they are people, they're image bearers of God. And because of that, like, that's just where my heart is, whether it's helping friends out whenever they need it, and I'm available, or going out and helping the homeless. Like, I really love doing that. As frustrating as it may get sometimes, or like as hard as it may be sometimes, there's a joy that's in it that you don't really get sometimes until after, a week later or something.
Well, Tom, thanks for sharing with us. Really appreciate it.